Thanks for tuning in, and welcome to the Good Earth's weekly radio show, Another Day of Living, where the conversations are all about eating well, living well, and feeling good. And now, here's your host, Alex Litwack.
If I'm looking for someone to talk to about exercise, a little bit about life, someone who is going to share their knowledge and have a good time, then I'm going to go call Sam Blandina, who happens to be here with me today, corrective exercise specialist that he is. Welcome, Sam.
Yo, Alex.
So what's our topic?
Today I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the most basic and important movement patterns that we do in our life, which is a squat pattern, or sitting, standing. When we look at rehabilitation, in almost every rehabilitation scenario when it comes to injury, brain injury, stroke, heart attack, anything of that nature, one of the primary movements that we want to see be able to do to restore function, a place where they can do their daily task, is can you sit, can you stand? It's basically a squat pattern.
I don't like squats.
A lot of people don't like squats, but there's actually an article written by the founder of the institute that I'm an intern through, Paul Check. It's called Fear the Squat No More. Most people will go into the gym and they'll do all these other exercises. And, not everybody's going to the gym. People are doing other modes of exercise, so it's not like everybody's a gym rat. The squat rack doesn't get touched. They'll do all this other sit-down, what I consider junk machine training. They'll go do this or go do that, but the squat rack is the king. If you can learn how to do a good squat, and it coached properly on it, it will do nothing but strengthen you.
I appreciate that I'm not the only one who avoids squats.
And it's it's a basic pattern in our human life, and it's one of the more primary patterns that we use. And it's a really basic pattern because almost everybody sits up and down.
What's the right way to do a squat?
Try to explain it to you. When you're doing a squat, your trunk should always be over your base of support. So that means if I were to look at you sideways and watch you do a squat, I would see your shoulders dropping directly over your feet, or if you'd let your arms hang down to your side when you're doing a squat, that I would see that they would drop right down the center of your feet. So if you're getting past that, you're doing more of a bend as opposed to a squat. Well, a really good cue that I have found that works well when you're teaching people how to squat is think about let your hips lead. You don't think about squatting from your knees. You think about leading with your hips going back a little bit first, and that'll naturally allow the knees to bend. The trunk should be erect and straight. Really the only reason why, if you think you're standing in a really tall posture and you do a squat, nothing should change from your hips to the top of your head. So your trunk is always staying the same. The fact that your hips are going back and it's changing angles the trunk forward. So you should never see a rounded back, a shifting pelvis, a dropping pelvis, pronation of the knees, which I see all the time when people do squats. So when you sit down and you're doing machine training, you're not asking any of those systems that come into play, your bigger muscle groups and your smaller stabilizer groups. When you're doing a squat, a freestanding squat, all that stuff is demanded to be used if you're doing it properly.
How far apart are your feet?
That's a really good question. It really depends on, you can do squats in many different positions. Single leg squats, plie squats, Jefferson squats, frontal squats, back squats, narrow-legged squats with your feet close together. You can squat on a balance platform like a Bosu ball, a Swiss ball. Some people, very advanced athletes, are capable of that. There's many different ways you can do squats. You could do squat push presses. You could do squat overhead presses. There's many variations of squat.
Does it matter where your arms are?
It does, depending on what you're doing. Like if you're doing a back squat, you hold a bar across your back. You never put it on your neck. It's actually resting on the upper part of the back. Your hands hold the bar. So the arms can be involved. In a frontal squat, the bar is held in front of the body, which is a little bit more challenging than doing a back squat. So as you squat, it should never hurt your knees. If it does, it's probably not being done properly, or there's something anatomically or tissue that's not correct. Now, just to give you an example, I've had a woman that I've worked with for about 2.5 to 3 years. She knows how to squat really well now. Not heavy, but her knees used to hurt all the time. I could hear them creaking, and it hurts my knees. The more we did them, the less her knees hurt. She has none of that in her knees now, because it has conditioned the connective tissue in her knees. So we're not just talking about muscles here. We're talking about connective tissue, the ligaments and the tendons that connect all together. She's built enough control and strength in her core and her connective tissue that she could do a really good functional squat now.
If someone's just starting out learning how to do a squat properly, the goal is not to get all the way down, is it?
It's not, because most people in all reality, even though they say, oh, you should be able to, have enough mobility to touch your butt, even though you're going to round your spine, you can sit, and I can almost do it, but not quite, and touch my butt to my heels when I'm in a squat. But I wouldn't do that with a load because I wouldn't want to round my spine and stress my lower back or my spine going that deep. So it depends on the length of the legs. Some people are real short in their femurs, and some people are real long. I'm really long everywhere. So for me to do a squat or pick up like a deadlift, I got a long way to travel. So it's a disadvantage the longer you are. And it's going to change the angle, the way things recruit. So it's always about the angles too. You want to look like, it's kind of like there's this little Z position that you're in when you're doing a squat properly. The knees should never be, they're going to go over the toes a little bit, but they should never go way over the toes. So the shins are going to stay like more in the vertical, if you will, to some degree. They're going to go forward a little bit, but they're not going to go so far forward. And it takes good ankle mobility, good knee and hip mobility, pelvic mobility to do a really good squat.
And it seems to me that you really need someone to watch you do a squat and correct what you're doing that is out of alignment so you don't continue to just do them poorly.
Alex, just as we've talked about before, if we're not assessing people's movement patterns and we're guessing, we're going to hurt them. And if we're not aware of what to look for in a good squat or a good lunge or whatever movement pattern it is, how can we help people correct it? We can't.
If we practice our squats and we get good at that, then sitting down in a chair, getting up from a chair, that very basic pattern should be golden.
Should be easy. In all reality, should be really, really easy. It's one of the most basic patterns that we work with.
What about getting in and out of the car?
Actually, you're doing several different movements there. If you think about it, you're doing like a trunk rotation with a side lunge. Believe it or not, that can be really harmful to people that are in pain. So here's a little modification. Open the door. Side sit. Swing your legs in instead of splitting out and stepping in with the other legs. If you're having real problems with your pelvis or pain, that's a little more protected way to sit into a car.
Because the way you sit in a car is going to have an impact on the way you sit.
The way we sit anywhere, Alex, the way we sit anywhere is going to have an impact on us. So, when we think about how we're supporting ourselves when we sit, we want to try to get ourselves in a good postural position. And really, in all reality, we don't want to be sitting too much, as we well know. We want to be on our feet as much as possible, walking and moving. And squatting is a great thing to do. Like if you've sat for a bit, you get up, do 10 squats, walk around for a few minutes. You know what I mean? It's a much better way to get yourself out of that seated pattern, which is a really negative pattern for us.
Well, Sam, I'm going to try to get over my dislike of squats because it's a really important movement to do well. Thank you.
You're welcome, dear.
It's the Good Earth's 45th year of providing the widest variety of organic foods, high-quality supplements, toxin-free body care products, therapeutic herbs, cooking spices, herbal teas, healthy shoes, and so much more. We've got over 20,000 items packed into the liveliest house in Broad Ripple. Our knowledgeable staff is here to help you find just what you need to be the healthiest person on your block. We're open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sundays, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Or you can check us out online at good-earth.com.
With me today is Todd Richmond. He's a certified massage therapist, and he's also certified in Thai bodywork. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Alex.
So you started out a regular massage therapist. What got you excited about Thai bodywork?
Well, honestly, Alex, what got me interested was when I was in massage school. I went to massage school in Boston, and I happened to take a week-on course in Thai massage. And I have a martial arts background. So when I experienced this body of work, I was absolutely at home. It was amazing. I felt incredible. It made sense to me. And I knew that's what I wanted to study when I got out of massage school, doing Swedish and neuromuscular work. And I was like, well, I have to find this type of work. Unfortunately, it's a lot easier to get licensing and certification through the massage schools because they have quite an influence in the government. Thai body work is not necessarily so you can go to school there, but you have to worry about, liability.
Why do you have to worry if you're going to get sued?
Anything can happen in a session. I mean, you're working on people. We live in a litigious society, and so you do have to worry, of course, protecting yourself and also your client. I mean, when you're doing deep therapeutic work, there is a possibility that someone can be injured.
What are the similarities between martial arts and doing Thai body work?
The body mechanics are really some of the similarities. So in massage, you're generally working on a table, and in Thai massage, you're working on the floor. So you can be using your knees, your elbows, walking on people. So the mechanics of moving from your core, from your center, is the kind of mechanics that you have to use, which is all the principles that are in, of course, martial arts.
When you have a client, they're on mats on the floor?
They can be lying on what I call a shiatsu mat or a cotton batting mat. I mean, it could also just be blankets. I mean, it just depends on, of course, how much disposable income and money you have to throw down, as in your business. But these are really nice cotton batting. They're nice and thick. But typically the session is clothed, so you're working on top of clothes, and usually like loose fitting stuff, so you can move around. It's kind of like a workout. The idea is that you can use your body in ways you can sit on people in terms of using your body weight. Like your knees, you can have these deep kind of pressures that you can't get so much on using table work, right?
Now I understand why you're worried about being sued if you're sitting on people, Todd.
Well, people will often be like, well, that's kind of strange, but if you understand that the actual practice of the Thai body work that is actually therapeutic, not only for the receiver, but also the practitioner.
How is Thai body work different from getting a deep muscle massage?
It always comes down to the idea and the perspective of the practitioner, honestly. When I mean deep meaning specific work. A lot of people think a lot more pressure means deep therapeutic work. That's not necessarily true. It's about the specificity, what layer that you're working at. And that has to do with the framework of the practitioner. Whether I work on the table with a client because they have inventory problems, my philosophy and framework are still very similar. The techniques of the Thai work are a little different. They're different than the Swedish work. They're usually a lot more compressive. They involve stretching under pressure, typically, because your body weight is put on to the tissues, and then they're stretched and lengthened, or they're compressed and shortened. So you're getting a lot of value of changing the muscular structure that way.
Do you work with any kind of injury?
I work with people that have had injuries. I don't work with people that are experiencing acute injuries. That typically needs some healing, not necessarily this type of work or what I do. I work with people that typically have a lot of chronic pain issues and dysfunction. My teacher in Chicago, who studied in Thailand, and his name is Chuck Duff, and he has a school up in Chicago in Evanston, and has kind of created a body of work that's quite interesting that matches philosophies of both East and West. So he takes the best of Western myofascial and dysfunction and pain, and then marries that with this body of Thai techniques. So he's able to take a consistent and specific pattern of pain that is basically like drawn out in maps, and is able to treat someone who comes in with a particular pain complaint, and is able to treat their muscles accordingly through this body of work. So this is an amazing blend between the two, a fusion of it. Now, the body of Thai work, it can be much broader than that, meaning that in Thailand, this is a branch of the Thai traditional medicine. So they treat disease. This is not just about muscular dysfunction. This just happens to be my specific area of focus and interest. It would be very hard to find someone who does Thai medicine here. It's usually taught from pupil to student, and not so much as an organized body of work, like, let's say, traditional Chinese medicine or TCM. But just like in all Asian medicines, disease is something out of balance. And so the Thai work, it looks at bringing you back into your body into balance. So they have specific ways of treating it through herbs, through body work. So when you go to a Thai doctor, he's going to recommend that you get some body work, and then also potentially chiropractic work, which in Thailand, your Thai massage person would be your chiropractor as well, potentially, or bone setter. So it's very interesting, the body of work that's available. Now, saying that, of course, I don't have that scope of practice in my work.
Someone's got chronic back pain, and they come to see you.
Yeah.
What are the techniques that you're going to use?
Back pain is a huge topic. A lot of people are going to come for back pain. And what a lot of people don't realize is, because, we're living in a culture where we're doing a lot of things, we're sitting down a lot, we're reclining, that back pain often will come from abdominal problems. Most people don't realize that. You're having problems shortening, your stomach muscles. Of course, your back is being lengthened and bent over. So your symptoms, of course, is your back pain, but that's not where I would typically focus my work at. Of course, initially, I would treat your back, but if I were to give you long-term benefit, it would be dismissive of me to not treat your abdominal areas, and of course realign your body. So this work is very structural. It has an amazing ability to move your limbs around and change your musculoskeletal structure.
What problem would someone have that would make you think, I need to walk on their body?
Walking on someone, it really is whether it's appropriate. The pressure, the amount of compression is appropriate. Someone who comes into me that's, like 250 pounds, if I were to, let's say, get into like bulky muscles, like let's say, take for example, hamstrings, those are huge muscles. To use my hands, I would destroy my hands over time. Most therapists last about 5 years in the business because they overuse their hands. So I could practice Thai massage until I'm 80, but usually not other people will do that. They'll blow their hands out and look for something else to do. It really does depend on who it is. Obviously you can walk on people's backs, but if they have disc problems or other spinal problems, that's not necessarily appropriate. So it has to be case by case basis. But if you've ever experienced this type of deep compressional work, what the compression can do for you is it acts as a pump. So it's allowing the blood to stop. Right. So this is one of the hallmarks of Thai work, is that you're stopping the blood and then you're letting it off, and all the blood rushes, new blood, fresh supply of blood. You're breaking down the metabolic wastes that are in the tissues. And of course, I don't mean the toxins and things that people start talking about. I mean metabolic wastes, right, that are stagnant. And so then the muscles get this fresh blood supply. They're able to move. And then afterwards, I'll lengthen and stretch the muscle to restore mobility back to the muscle.
You've talked about Thai medicine and then the body work component of it. Is there an energetic component to Thai massage?
Yeah. Well, so just like in Chinese medicine, there are meridians. this is not necessarily analogous, but that they do see movement pathways in the body, and they call those sen. Basically, sen means line and tie. Typically, what will happen is there's stagnation in the body, stagnation in the sen, and they work at freeing that line in the body, and they use the compression along those lines to treat the body. And there are, of course, pathways that people have discovered that they teach, and you can treat along those pathways or the sen to treat the body for disease, for musculotendinous problems. That's one extra perspective or element that's being used in the Thai medicine.
Typically, is someone coming to you for a series of sessions to get to a better place?
Well, it depends really when the client comes in what their goals are. Usually if they're in acute chronic pain, it may take 2 to 3 sessions to have some relief, and then there's going to be some long-term work for them to change their behaviors. I'm always looking at like how they live, what's their lifestyle like, what's contributing factors. I really try to look at it all different kinds of angles for my clients because I'm not going to be there to watch them, right?
You don't stalk your clients?
I don't stalk my clients. No. I love my clients. They're great. I have so many wonderful clients. I see my clients as my students. They are my true teachers. I've learned a lot from them.
If someone is looking for a Thai bodywork practitioner, where can they go?
You can go check out the website at thaibodywork.com. They have a directory of bodywork practitioners all over the U.S. There are other organizations that you can look into. It's Bob Hadat's organization called Thai Alliance, and they have certified practitioners, and that's THAI Alliance. And you can look for practitioners through that organization as well.
Todd, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about Thai bodywork. It's been fascinating. I'm glad you're not going to step on me. And thanks for being a part of the show.
Thank you so much, Alex.
And now a little commentary from Ed Wank.
In 1958, right here in Indianapolis, a group of aging white guys formed the John Birch Society. The founder was candy tycoon Robert Welch, the man who gave the world sugar daddies and junior mints. He was joined, among others, by Fred Koch. If that name sounds familiar, it's because 2 of his kids, Charles and David Koch, have now become famous for trying to buy every election they can. The Birchers were seen as a huge threat to the mainstream Republican Party, seeing as how the JBS thought that the U.S. was secretly in bed with the Soviets, and that the civil rights movement was more about Marxism than voting rights. The Birchers proved themselves so nutty that those legendary liberals Barry Goldwater and William F. Buckley Jr. set out to discredit them as, quote, far removed from common sense, Buckley's words. That began in 1962, before the death of JFK all but guaranteed the election of Lyndon Johnson by a grieving nation. Goldwater got stomped in 64, but he did pave the way for the shift in the GOP that eventually culminated with the election of a very conservative fellow named Ronald Reagan. Since Reagan, we've had a couple of Bushes, a Clinton, and an Obama, a Great Recession, and a 9/11. We've also seen the rise of Fox News and the nativist, racist, xenophobic, lunatic fringe that gave voice to the perfect expression of hate-wing media's honky talking points, Donald Trump. Fox and Trump are fighting right now, by the way, and I feel the same way about that as I do when the Detroit Pistons play the New York Knicks. I'm not rooting for anyone. The original Birchers would have loved the current crop of GOP candidates. Heck, there's even an African-American doctor in the bunch who believes that practicing a certain religion should disqualify a person from holding office in the United States of America. But the cheering crowds that look like a victory for the likes of the Kochs and the Trumps are just pretty decorations on a really sour cake. Donald's declared enough bankruptcies that we shouldn't be too surprised when it turns out he can't do math. The Electoral College have lots of voters in states that are loaded with lots of immigrants. Calling all those people names is a pretty rotten strategy. Forget all the fundamentalist blather about America being a Christian nation. Heck, if these lunkheads would read a book besides Leviticus or Romans, they'd learn about the Jefferson Bible or the probability that the only things Ben Franklin ever worshipped were French lady parts. All of this evangelical rapture rap will ultimately mean nothing, because in the end, it'll be the science of numbers that does the GOP in come 2016. But judging by their public pronouncements so far, science isn't a strong suit with these folks either.
That's our show. Next week is an encore presentation of one of our favorite programs from the past year. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, and remember that all of our shows are archived at anotherdayofliving.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Alex Litwack. Have a great week.
The happiest half hour of your day has been brought to you by the Good Earth Natural Food Company, keeping Indy healthy since 1971.